Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the greatest NBA player to ever live, and it really is not even close. 6 NBA championships, 6 finals MVPs, 6 Game 6 finals wins, 6 rebounds per game while standing at a strong 6 foot 6 inches, donning the legendary 23 on his jersey. 2 + 3 = 6. The GOAT, Baphomet himself, immortalized in the most feared NBA player to ever live. The icon of greatness. Bear no illusions, petty mortals. Jordan was an otherworldly talent. His ability to go above and beyond only matched in a handful of other cases. Not only the most clutch and prolific offensive player in NBA history, but also just as effective on the defensive end. And defense is what wins championships. Your drive and aura being so powerful that your team is literally afraid to deliver a subpar performance. Not only the best, but also created a culture where his generals in war were also able to ascend to godlike status. Jordan's mental fortitude was unlike anything we have ever seen or will ever see again, which is why it's laughable and pathetic when these simple-minded fools make comparisons to the true GOAT. Comparisons that are so egregious and low IQ that I can't watch ESPN for 10 minutes without throwing up in my mouth. And for those peasants who have never really watched a full Michael Jordan playoff run, and please stop lying to yourself, you know who you are. In this video, I will break down step by step in the most simple terms possible why it really is not even close. I don't want this video to be about LeBron James, but the media has really given me no choice. As blasphemous as it is, people would have you believe that LeBron James is even in the discussion at all. They try to tear down Jordan's prolific legacy one brick at a time to build up their false idol. Not only will I methodically break down why Jordan is so far ahead of the pack, but I'm also going to illustrate why LeBron James is arguably not even on Mount Rushmore. Objectively, he's probably in the bottom half of the top 10 if you're just looking at it on paper. And the deeper you dig into the advanced analytics, the more clear it becomes. Michael Jeffrey Jordan was considered the best player in the league before he ever put on a championship ring. There were reputable sources saying he was the best player they'd ever seen when he was in college. 3 years at North Carolina, 88-13 with 1 championship. A 54% shooter with that same mid-range bag that he would later use to dominate the NBA. College basketball is far more competitive than people think, and Jordan winning at this level isn't something that should be understated. This was character development for a player like Michael Jordan, a place where he learned how to play in a system and respect his coach, something that LeBron James could have benefited from greatly. Michael Jeffrey Jordan's first few years in the league were very different. He was dropping 60 against Larry Bird's Celtics while playing with literal crackheads and plumbers. The Bulls were garbage before Jordan, and in his time during the 80s, he made every one-on-one situation look like a joke. But as I said, defense wins championships. The Detroit Pistons proved this, going back-to-back in the finals, during a time where the East was so unbelievably stacked it makes LeBron's time in the Midwest look like a cakewalk. A fact that seems to be lost on LeBron stands. The Pistons going back-to-back the way they did was a tall order considering the competition. The Pistons were the most violent defensive brick wall the league had ever seen. Jordan going through them in the Eastern playoffs is one of the greatest feats in sports history. They literally had special rules just for Michael Jordan, the Jordan rules. Push him to the wing, and if he goes up in the paint, put him on the floor. Very simple. Jordan had to get extremely creative and dig deep into his bag to score, all while Scottie Pippen was literally getting bullied like a kid in middle school. LeBron James never had to go through any wars like that on his way to the finals. The East was extremely garbage for all of his playoff runs, but he would still lose and choke against teams that had no business matching his physical potential. I watched every playoff game LeBron ever played while he was in the East. Indiana, Detroit, they were okay. Dwight Howard was making a little bit of noise in Orlando. Still nothing compared to how stacked the East was while Jordan was playing. Larry Bird's Celtics, Shaq and Penny's Magic, the Knicks' incredible defense, the bad boy Pistons, the Heat with Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning, coached by Pat Riley, Charles Barkley, Reggie Miller, the Utah Jazz, who would have certainly gone back-to-back if the Bulls didn't exist. It goes on and on. LeBron James is physically a very good player, a major asset for any team on paper, but His bag is nowhere near as deep as Jordan's, and his mentality is weak in comparison. This is the case for many players being thrown into this debate. Exceptions are Kobe Bryant and maybe Tim Duncan and a few others, rare players like Reggie Miller who weren't afraid of Jordan. The players that played with Kobe say the same things about him that Jordan's peers said about Jordan. They were simply just built different. There's an interview with Allen Iverson and 2 other players. All of them played against Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. That's a very specific and rare window. They have a perspective that nobody else can have, and they all agree Jordan was the one. Even when you show LeBron stands the footage of Jordan dominating and 99% of his peers put their egos aside to give the respect that's due, they only see what they want to see, ignoring the obvious key notes that actually matter in the context of the debate. LeBron James has no mid-range game. This is a generalization, but they see 5 minutes of a montage where LeBron hits some mid-range shots and go, look, he does have a mid-range game with the enthusiasm of a 6-year-old. Bottom line, LeBron James shoots less than 35% outside of 3 feet, and it gets worse during pivotal fourth quarters. Michael is often in the 50s, Kobe is close to 50, Tim Duncan 50, Kareem 50, Bird 50. This is where I make my first point about Mount Rushmore. Putting LeBron James against Jordan has done nothing but make him look bad and diminish his otherwise impressive career. LeBron James is a dangerous offensive threat when going to the rim, especially in a league that plays subpar defense. LeBron has the physical advantage going into the paint, kind of like Shaq, but a different style. Shaq just did it better. Shaq was way more valuable as a player, and he fit into a system and played a role. As I said, most of LeBron's shot selections are 3 feet or less from the rim. This is one of the main reasons LeBron really needed to play in a strict system. Letting LeBron have his way on every team ruined his potential. He's not this high IQ leader that everyone thinks he is. Not like Jordan, who had the wit to understand his role, how it could evolve into a system that would give an average player big opportunities. LeBron could have had this in Miami, but he didn't have the right mentality. The second things weren't feeling right or his stats weren't looking good, he ran or tried to fire the coach. It was so bad that some people think LeBron threw against the Mavericks because Dwayne Wade was taking over and leading. Quote, "If you want to have fun, play with LeBron. If you want to win, play with Kobe Bryant." Larry Bird. I don't think Miami was having fun playing with LeBron. He's not humble and he's not wise. 2 rings in Miami, one of them universally understood to be so lucky that even the dick-riding media avoids talking about it. LeBron choked and got saved so many times it's not even worth arguing the point. While LeBron failed to be the leader he thought he was in the fourth quarter of big games, Ray Allen, Kyrie Irving, and Dwayne Wade were the ones hitting the big shots. It's not about how many points you get, it's about when you get those points. Basketball is a game of rhythm and pace. Even big games are often on autopilot until those clutch moments present themselves. No one was better in the clutch than Michael Jordan. What do I consider to be clutch? The fourth quarter or the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter in a playoff or finals match. If you're in a catch and shoot situation with the game on the line, I'm taking Larry Bird. If you have 10 seconds left and need someone to either clutch or make the right play, I'm taking Jordan. Kareem was the same way. You need a bucket with no time on the clock? Kareem had seasons when he was averaging 60 with ice in his veins. Deep hook shots with no chance of him choking. It might not always go in, but he's not missing because he's not that guy. The man has 6 rings. He was the all-time scoring leader through a defense-heavy era, and LeBron James, who is 3-20 in the finals and one of the least reliable fourth quarter players in this debate, is ahead of Kareem? No, it's absolute insanity to make that argument. Kareem was a better player, a better winner, more efficient, more clutch, and a perfect asset for team chemistry. I wanted to build this up slowly, but I was actually getting angry writing this script. Number 1 is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And, in a subjective order after Jordan, 2, Kobe Bryant, 3, Kareem, 4, Shaq, 5, Tim Duncan. And I don't think that's debatable. This guy is so painfully underrated and misunderstood. Magic Johnson is 6, and 7, here's where I'm not so sure. I think you could maybe argue LeBron for 7, if he wasn't such a lame personality that ruins teams. Bird was way more clutch and a better leader. I would personally take Bird. but you could create some hypothetical situation where LeBron would be a better choice. Bird would probably say LeBron, but it is arguably more subjective at this point. Then you got Hakeem, who was the hardest recorded matchup for Jordan. If you know, you know, I won't get into it. And the list goes on and on. Different people will have different orders depending on perspective. I really don't see how my 1 through 6 is debatable though. All of those players have more rings with comparable or less help. All of them were better teammates that filled a certain role and helped the system. They're simply just more likable as human beings. Not a single one of them has said, I am the GOAT. Okay, I might lose some people here. This video is getting kind of long, but this is my opinion. Scottie Pippen. I'm gonna make an entire video about Pippen, but for now, I think I'm one of the 10 people who actually read Scottie Pippen's book. I went out and bought a hard copy, read it with my eyeballs. Scottie's perspective into the Bulls dynasty years was a very interesting read. Pippen was one of the best all-around players in the NBA. Jordan himself said Pippen was the best all-around player on the Bulls. A direct quote from the book, which I'm taking as fact unless Jordan himself refutes it. I've said Pippen was the second best player in the league. Johnny Arnett actually mentioned this comment I left on one of his videos. He's basically saying that it's not true, kind of scoffing at it in reality. I agree that it's arguably a stretch to say that. There were better offensive players, but not really on the defensive end. The best all-around player doesn't have to mean the best player. Scottie had a crazy good year when Jordan retired. The Bulls likely would have got another ring if Jordan didn't come back. They went to the semifinals without Jordan, and Pippen was on fire. The team loved him. The Bulls organization was on point with getting the right people in the right places at the right time. I can see them picking one up at some point, even if Jordan didn't come back. And Pippen has 6 rings as one of the best players in the league at the time. So either way, I'd take Pippen's 22 points a game, 8 rebounds, and whatever assists, plus being one of the best defenders of all time, a high IQ role player who can run the triangle, over LeBron's fucking trash defense, drama, bad team chemistry, nervous in the fourth quarter when he's supposed to be the king. When Pippen got over his growing pains, he was ice cold confident. He did so much on the floor that doesn't show in the stats. He ran the Bulls' offense with laser precision. His flaws were magnified because he was in the shadow of Jordan. And people say with a straight face that Pippen's not even in the top 50. Clowns. LeBron James isn't even the best player in his own era. There is no universe where you take LeBron James over Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. Jordan himself alluded to the fact that Durant was a better option. But let's be really real right now. Steph Curry, who is one of the greatest shooters the league has ever seen, Steph's bag is so deep, his movement is so fucking cracked, the off-balance shots, the reads, the footwork, his value as a player in a team system is so far beyond what LeBron offers. He's not really a slack on defense either. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love got that Cavs team past Curry, not LeBron. I can make a whole video about that, but, Kyrie is a much better player from an eye test perspective, but like LeBron, he kind of comes with drama and trash defense, unable to fit into a system the way a team needs. The one time he did fit into a system, they won a championship, but neither of them are the class act that Steph Curry is. KD going to Golden State is the only stain on Steph's legacy. Steph didn't chase rings, he built his kingdom brick by brick. Who was the real king in that era? This is the truth, seriously. I don't see a lot of people making this point, but this really trumps all the arguments in my opinion. People champion LeBron and put him high on these debates for one reason: the brand. LeBron James is the most popular player in the NBA. And while he still plays, it's financially beneficial for the NBA and the media to prop him up. LeBron's image was calculated and fabricated from day one. Jordan's legacy cast a massive shadow over the NBA when he retired. It took a sus Kobe and Shaq three-peat and a false idol to fill the hole that Jordan left. Wearing Jordan's number was a marketing tactic done in bad taste, greed and disrespect from the puppet masters lurking in the shadows. When you're debating where players rank on the all-time list, you have to paint it a certain way. Can't just say, well, my guy did this and your guy did that. You have to imagine a situation where you try to build a team around that player. How would they react? How would they play? What pieces would go around them? Even if you just looked at the numbers and ignored LeBron's choking and team drama and trying to fire coaches, his bad passes and trash fourth quarters, stats favor Curry in every way. Advanced analytics have proven that Steph is like the end game for the NBA. Why do anything else when what he does is the most effective? Will it take the art and individuality out of the game? Yes. There will be no more specialists in the next generation after everybody copies Steph. Everyone will play the same way, spread out ISO ball snipers with good footwork. The next generation will not copy LeBron, as his entire game is predicated on his physicality. Alright, part 2. The clutch gene. Michael Jeffrey Jordan is the greatest closer this game has ever seen. And it really is not even close. I could go through every clutch situation he's ever been in. I could show you the advanced analytics of his fourth quarters versus LeBron's. I could regurgitate the same standard stats that alone show how clutch Michael really was. But I'm writing this script off the top of my head. The earliest memories I have of watching the NBA were the Bulls destroying Shaq and Penny's Magic. 96 regular season, I think. I was a big Magic fan as a kid. I had a family that lived in Florida and I would visit sometimes. That was the first team I liked. Kazam came out that year. Shaq was my gateway to the NBA. The Magic is another underrated team and duo. Shaq has said several times that Penny was a lot like Kobe. They were a dangerous team and much better than most of the trash that LeBron played in the East. Even at 7 or 8 years old, it was easy to understand that games were basically on autopilot until Jordan took over. Shaq was my favorite player, and he was essentially just as dominant in the 90s as he was in the 2000s. But even Shaq would get this worried look on his face when Jordan started going for throats. And when Jordan started going for throats, he passed that energy on to Pippin and the rest of the Bulls. Shaq has spoken openly about how he and the rest of the NBA were basically afraid of Michael Jordan. Shaq, the most dominant physical force on the planet, openly admitted that he was afraid of another human being. I was a Kobe and Shaq fan for years. If you asked me in my 20s, I'd say with confidence that Shaq and Kobe were GOAT A and GOAT B. But while I worked this shit job at B-dubs in my 20s, living on OSU campus, playing pickup games after work and getting into rec league, I started going back and watching all these old Lakers playoff games. I would just lay on the floor with headphones and with my full attention watch as many playoff and final matches as I could find on YouTube. I didn't even want to watch games without Kareem because I was so thirsty. All of those Lakers games were very exciting to watch. The Lakers were an incredible team, which is why watching Michael Jordan rip them apart for the first time was so eye-opening. The Bulls were something different. Jordan was different. I started binging Jordan matches, interviews, regular season games, documentaries. That summer I became a Jordan historian. I studied him, copied as many moves as I could, learned how the triangle worked, got into massive debates and arguments with people. I lived in Columbus and LeBron was in Miami at the time. The GOAT debate was at its peak and people were pushing LeBron hard. He was the hometown hero. Akron is right between Cleveland and Columbus. I later worked at a popular bar and club on campus, so the conversation was never ending with people. This was difficult for me because I could tell people had no idea about Jordan really. Just highlights and the legendary stories about his run. Watching him play is different. Really analyzing him play is different. At the same time I'm binging Jordan games, LeBron is choking in Miami, but people are saying he's the GOAT? 1 ring? People really believed Miami would be a dynasty, but you could see LeBron's fourth quarter issues. It was very obvious. Michael's ability to take over a game was electric. And his first ring is without a doubt his most underrated. There are many false narratives surrounding the 91 Bulls championship run. 2 specifically that I want to touch on. 1, Pippin was the primary defender on Magic. And 2, that Lakers team was old. Not only did Jordan have to overcome the greatest defensive team in NBA history just to get to the finals, but Magic was still very much in his prime. A 29 or 30-year-old Magic was putting up career numbers. The Lakers had the third most wins in the league and the most wins in the West. 20 points a game, whatever rebounds, and 15 assists. The core of that Lakers team had just won 3 rings in the past 6 years. Not only was it the same team, but they were making significant defensive adjustments with a new coach. The run and gun style of the 80s wasn't working anymore. Magic was one of those generational players that could evolve and adapt to the shifting tides of the league. They were a legit threat and a championship contender. Vegas had the Lakers in 7. Jordan was the difference maker in an otherwise fair matchup. Now, Pippen is one of the most underrated players in NBA history. The only question is whether or not he would have been as good without Jordan's aura pushing the team. Either way, he was arguably one of the best defensive players ever. Consistent half-court suffocating defense. He was on Magic a lot in that series. He played his part, but the truth is, Jordan was the primary defender on Magic Johnson. It didn't go to Game 7. Jordan was otherworldly in his performance. The mid-range game, attacking the rim, the defense. This is after years of dealing with the Jordan rules and running into all-time great teams in the East. Jordan did it the right way and led his team the right way. LeBron's first ring was a sad joke in comparison to the GOAT. LeBron spent most of his prime playing in the East. He showed a lot of potential in his early years at Cleveland, but as it is known, the East was weak. Not only did he embrace the comparisons to Jordan, but he had the audacity to wear his number. After failing to bring a ring to Cleveland, he left to form a literal super team in Miami. On paper, this team was so stacked that even LeBron himself declared they would get 8 rings. The only thing LeBron is prolific in is stat padding and putting on clown makeup. His time in Miami was subpar to say the least. He choked against a Mavericks team who were also well known for choking. He got humiliated by a Spurs team that was far less stacked. And he had his career saved by Ray Allen hitting one of the biggest clutch shots in NBA history. I hate to put down teams that got a ring like the Mavs, even LeBron, but these comparisons to Jordan are absurd. LeBron was nothing more than a disruption to Miami's system, and he made underrated players like Chris Bosh look bad. He tried to get the coach fired, created bad vibes in the locker room, aggressively cheated using PEDs, and left Miami with a 2-4 record. This is laughable compared to Jordan's first three-peat. That Mavericks team had no business beating Miami. It's either one of the most impressive championships in NBA history or one of the luckiest. Jason Terry terrorized LeBron. The amount of choking that happened that year is truly historic. Honestly, give the Mavs props for executing when the opportunity presented itself. After Jordan's first 2 rings, he was already hailed as the GOAT, the greatest single player to ever live, on one of the greatest teams ever assembled. The Bulls organization was on point from top to bottom. Jordan had nothing more to prove. Going back-to-back earned him the respect and prestige he was looking for. For LeBron, the only thing he could do to correct the clown show in Miami was go back to Cleveland and win them another ring. But as someone who grew up in Ohio on Ohio State campus, watching basketball, playing against college players in rec league, hitting the courts and having debates with people that actually know basketball, it was very clear that LeBron wasn't the driving force for that chip. Everyone knew it. Games would be on autopilot and Kyrie Irving was the one putting up the Jordan-esque performances in the fourth quarter. LeBron is at his most valuable when he has someone who can close. This shouldn't be a negative thing for LeBron. He did his job and they got a ring. But again, when compared to Jordan, who was the most prolific closer in NBA history, it doesn't really add up. LeBron was even trying to trade Kyrie for Chris Paul and Paul George. Unbelievable and despicable. I don't understand how anybody likes this guy. If you have such a high IQ, why would you trade Kyrie? Phil Jackson's philosophy of putting the ego aside was lost on him. You want to be Jordan so bad, but did you study what made him who he was? Team goes back to back and they start to fall apart. History has told this story over and over. When something truly legendary happens like Kobe and Shaq's three-peat, it doesn't really matter how it happened. They went above and beyond. Jordan's first three-peat was a result of winning war after war after war. Stacked Eastern teams in hard-fought battles, all of them going for his neck. The lion's share of the pressure because he was the difference maker. His mentality and aura carried them through the fire and flames. His career stats at that point were insane. He had 3 rings, he had just won against stacked teams that had the potential to stop him. He was clutch over and over and over. He played in a system that allowed him to make passes at the right time so players could do their part. When someone else hit a big shot on the Bulls, that was owed. When someone hits a big shot for LeBron, he got saved. That sounds messed up, but it's really the truth. Jordan was never choking in the fourth quarter and then got saved. His team flourished under his command. This argument is already over. It's been over. It was over when most of these LeBron stans were born. Every stat that matters, every advanced analytic, and every conceivable measurable metric, Jordan was the GOAT by the mid-90s. Stat padding career numbers are a sorry attempt at diminishing the legacy of the GOAT. Jordan went on to win another literal three-peat after already being the GOAT, playing against stone-cold killers like Reggie Miller, Shaq, Karl Malone, John Stockton, players and teams that would have had rings if Jordan didn't exist. How do you beat the best when you are the best? Late in Jordan's career, there were huge stints where Pippin was out for months. Jordan still carried them to the playoffs. As good as he was in the playoffs, he was just as good in the regular season. He never turned it off. Even at 40 years old, when Jordan came back to play for the Wizards, he was, it was just icing on the cake. He had like back-to-back 40-point games, after his second retirement. I want to make a video explaining the truth about Jordan's Wizards comeback. There's a lot of misinformation and false narratives surrounding that. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. It's difficult to write a script about Jordan. Not a lot hasn't been said, but I feel like I have somewhat of a unique perspective. There are very few of us that have actually gone back and watched all of Jordan's playoff runs, even less that saw him play when he played, even though I was young. I watched and analyzed basketball all through the 2000s and 2010s. I played basketball hard in my 20s, lots of hard-fought pickup games on OSU campus, lots of conversations with players and fans. There was a few summers where it seemed like every night we were on the courts playing with different people. This Jordan debate has gone on and on in my life. I will say this, I've never met somebody who I respect and can tell they know what they're talking about who would put LeBron anywhere near Jordan. Even the most die-hard LeBron supporters struggle to make arguments for the top 4. How do you put LeBron ahead of anyone who has led a three-peat team? LeBron didn't even play on the best teams in his era. Golden State and the Spurs were far better. Kobe's led Lakers went back-to-back without Shaq. That's another video I'd like to make. Kobe gets glossed over all the time. It's almost as laughable as comparing LeBron to Jordan. Just to put the final nail in the coffin, this whole video was off the top of my head, but I'd like to point out some stats that really do stick out. Couldn't remember them exactly off the top of my head, so, looked them up. I've seen people from Ohio try to make the argument that LeBron does have a mid-range game. I mean, if he showed up for a pickup game on OSU campus, I'm sure his bag would look crazy. But as I said, he is a 35% shooter outside of 3 feet, and he's a 33% three-point shooter. Here's a graphic showing his shot placements. Go watch a single playoff game at random from Michael Jordan and think about this graphic. Stop the cap. If someone thinks LeBron is top 4, I find they have a very hard time adjusting their views in the face of facts. If you have passionately come to this conclusion, it's probably because you don't know what you're talking about. When it comes to Jordan, it's not a matter of opinion. Jordan's peak was 10 years. He played all 82 games 9 times. LeBron went to the finals 9 times and won 3. That's 3 out of 9. People like to frame it as 3 and 6, which makes it sound better, but It's 9 finals appearances with 3 wins. Jordan is 6 for 6. Winning is winning. The playoff run only matters if you win. 72-0 is hollow if you can't close. Again, Jordan is the greatest closer to ever play the game. LeBron lost 4-1 several times and got swept twice. Didn't even belong in the finals because of how weak the East really was. The East was dominant in the 90s. Even the expansion teams ended up being competitive. All of them were gifted great players and had good picks in the draft. Not that it matters because Jordan's wars were against prolific competitive teams in the playoffs, but I digress. Steph Curry is a great three-point shooter, KD is an offensive threat with a deep bag, but they never played lockdown defense like the Bulls. LeBron never played lockdown defense like the Bulls. The Bulls had 50% plus three-point shooters. Jordan was 9-0 in championship situations, 1 in college, 2 Olympic gold medals, and 6 in the NBA. Let me tell you something. It literally took Shaq and Kobe to get 1 three-peat. Jordan did it twice. Jordan and Pippin. As much as I love Pippin, it wasn't Batman and Superman. It wasn't Goku and Vegeta. It wasn't anything like that. It was Batman and Holy Pepperoni Robin. As underrated as Pippin is, it ain't even close to having somebody like Kyrie Irving, who has one of the deepest offensive bags in NBA history. Kyrie would break LeBron's ankles and send him to the Shadow Realm in a 1v1. God only knows what those Cavs practice sessions looked like back in 2016. In conclusion, people don't really realize how good that Utah team actually was. Utah had to go through Houston and the Shaq and Kobe Lakers just to get to the finals. Just because Jordan beat them doesn't mean they weren't good. That team goes back to back. If Jordan doesn't exist, Karl Malone would have 2 rings and be one of the all-time scoring leaders in NBA history. Jordan's last 2 rings are insane. You already have 4. The organization is pulling the team apart. The East is stronger than ever with a bloodthirsty Reggie Miller pushing them to their limits. Teams fall apart under much less pressure. There will never be another player like Michael Jordan. Basketball as a game peaked while he played and he dominated it. All competitive games reach a point where it can't get any better. It can only be different. That's what we're seeing right now with Steph Curry. Spread the floor, force the ISO situations. Maybe one day we'll see a version of the NBA where every player has Steph's skill set. It's kind of trending in that direction. Physical conditioning advancements will have players going into their 50s. But it'll never be like what Jordan went through. The diversity of skill sets, the defense, the aura, the passion, the storylines. When players weren't getting brain rot from social media and everything that comes with that. That's all I got. Hopefully my fellow Jordan fans enjoyed the video. This is a big video for me. I'm not an NBA YouTuber. My channel has been all over the place for a while. I don't really know what I want to do. I could do some more NBA content. I have several other scripts in mind. I've been slowly writing this script for a long time and I wanted to make a GOAT debate video for years. If you did make it to the end, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Really like to get my channel some momentum. Maybe NBA content is the right direction. You know, the engagement on likes and comments really makes a huge difference. Thanks for watching. Okay, I wanted to make one more point about three-point shooting. Jordan once tied the record for the most three-point shots in an NBA Finals. Jordan was being compared to Clive Drexler at the time, except Clive was known as a better three-point shooter. Jordan was quoted saying, "I choose not to be a better three-point shooter." The 90s was a defense-heavy era and having a tight mid-range game was simply more important, unlike today where there's less pressure on shooters. Michael Jordan tying the finals three-point record just because he felt slighted is more than enough to end that argument. Michael had catch-and-shoot snipers on his team already, guys like John Paxson and Steve Kerr who were just as good as catch-and-shoot guys today. LeBron is a garbage three-point shooter in an era of three-point shooting. Players are making 30 points a game look easy because of how spread the floor is, but taking over a finals game and dropping heavily defended threes at will, Michael could do it all, and it wasn't something he needed to focus on.